Thank you. Very excited to be here today. I joined Reddit 3 years ago and formed the first official SRE team. I say official because SRE existed in role and title, but perhaps not function. And I want to illustrate to you a little bit, wow, that can be confusing in this industry. But first I want to say I work with incredible people every day. I'm grateful for my teams and for our leadership for allowing me to take them on this learning adventure. And I want to discuss today process decision model that I've dubbed accountability engineering. But first, a show of hands. If you were to turn to the person next to you and ask them to, without announcing which of these concepts you were describing, accurately guess your description and match it to the topic, how many of you believe you could do that confidently to the person to your left or right? It's actually a little lower than I thought. I was expecting a few more slides to progress and advance the point. How about now? Hands go down. Even less familiar already? What if I do this? It's just an ing. How about now? There are no hands up in the room. Wow, okay, so suddenly we've extended terms that were concepts, turned them into disciplines, job title, a team, and there are so many overlaps in responsibilities that not a single person, I saw one shy half hand, could actually go and confidently describe to their neighbor what it is that that job or team function does. That's somewhat alarming. So let me get this out of the way. I felt obligation to go and look it up. This is the first two lines of the Wikipedia page for SRE. I thought it was hysterical. SRE claims to create highly reliable and scalable software systems. We've convinced the internet, folks. Further down the page in the section that actually reads definition, someone added, some companies have rebranded their operations teams to SRE teams with little meaningful change. And that is citation to Stephen Gossett at Built-in, if you're familiar with that publication. So over time, or perhaps too quickly, you may have found that you needed to reinvent yourself. And the industry does a great job of just talking about this, perhaps ad nauseum. We're all here today. We're all listening. And I think there's actually an attempt to go and do two things here. One, provide team direction and identity, or to reestablish relevance. Just don't do this, please. We're all confused enough already. So I think I'm a little late to the party on this one. A few folks have stabbed or torn up the books. Sal Farino did his SLO talk and called this directionally correct. I think I'm going to take Niall Murphy up on his offer to do a dramatic reading at some point. If you missed his talk, that's funny. But this well-intentioned attempt to emulate the pioneers in the industry has actually led to a lot of broken teams and isolated engineers. So it's been 20 years. I don't think a lot of teams are still trying to start from here, but this is a model. And very quickly you can find you've made enough wrong steps that you have sprawl, understaffing, silos, fragmentation, and an unhealthy team. I would actually go and bet that most services lifetimes outlast the existence of the SRE teams at their companies. So that one doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. And most SRE teams don't staff enough to come close to actually supporting a diagram like that on the right. So I want to talk a little bit more about models quickly. How should you expect to find your own journey progress as an SRE team? This is the Tuckman model of group development. Bruce Tuckman was a psychology researcher at Princeton University, and in 1965 he promoted this theory that at any time there were 4 stages of group development. You could be in only one of them at any single point in time, and you could move along this curve in theory. So the model's reference to team formation. It could be a project, it could be a team, and there was, well, is, I think, in our industry, perhaps a norming that comes with renorming, perhaps even reforming. Evil Kermit says, sure, take the easy path out. Just rename, reorg, and you'll be fine. Put them back together, SREs or something else, maybe the ML infrastructure platform production SRE. Tuckman in 1977 added to this a 5th stage that in some texts actually isn't called adjourning, it's called mourning, because it's about the relationships, and the relationships become fundamentally broken, at which point it's not the scope of work of your team, it's not the team name, it's not the job title. Those things are all in some ways superficial. It's that you've lost sight of your goals. It's that you're no longer effectively working together as a team towards an objective. Or worse, the business doesn't understand your team's value. And unfortunately, we talked about that a little bit this conference session so far. So I want to talk to you about how accountability engineering principles can keep your team healthy. When you look at these, I hope you think, yeah, those all matter to me. That's important. I've had two wise kernels of advice imparted on me in my management journey. The first was, your team is your product. And so if you can't go and satisfy most of these needs for your team, you aren't destined to have a team for very long. And so at Reddit, I manage teams, and we call them SREs. And SRE as an identity in the industry is hard, and setting up an SRE team at a company can also be very challenging and difficult, in part because there are so many overlaps. And at Reddit, we created a lot of different infrastructure teams with a lot of single purposes and still found overlaps. Where did SRE fit in? So every company is different. And these concepts here, the first concepts that I presented with so few hands held high, you can't solve all of them at once for everybody simultaneously, all at the same time. But they are all in scope for an SRE team. I'd argue that that's actually a really good thing, because the concepts matter way more than the job titles, as I tried to argue, and it provides your teams the freedom to identify and work on what matters most. It's good for the junior engineers, low on the bottom left-hand side. They derive a lot of value, understanding how to stay in their lane, how to identify useful work. Maybe it's just they're taking tasks, they're not doing large cross-functional projects. This is a good way of establishing identity as a starting point. But as your senior ICs and staff engineers start to progress along their careers, these concepts tend to matter much more than the actual team formation. And those are the people that you need to rely on to keep your teams healthy with you as a manager. Actually, another show of hands here. How many of your companies have had a software engineering team that's gone through a reorg in the last year? Wow, okay, way more than the concepts. That's, all right, keep them up. 6 months? 90 days? 30 days? That's still a lot. Okay, how many of them got new job titles in the process? Yeah, right? They don't do it that way. Okay, the second piece of advice that I received was, don't boil the ocean. So on this slide, there are 28 green avatars. Don't have to bother counting. A couple rules: always put more than one person on a project. More than one SRE, if possible. Make adjourning normal. Strive to make termination of an effort or a small initiative fast. You want to fail fast. Why? Because you're going to have either solved the problem by identifying a new, better way, or you are going to very quickly be able to reassemble and get people working back together in healthy, happy ways. That takes you to performing on all of these mini graphs a lot faster than should you say, no, this is your team title, no, this is your role. You'll figure out what to do. So be iterative, reform without destroying the team, choose better projects, and do it together. Put the focus on relationships. So accountability engineering is an ideological decision framework. I use this to promote health and the longevity of SRE teams at Reddit by prioritizing what keeps the team focused and working together. So let me first put a disclaimer out there. Accountability engineering is a heuristic. It's not an engineering discipline. Don't put a job title up for accountability engineering. We've got too many as it is. And if at the end of this talk you decide you want to go and form an accountability engineering team, I have failed. Please find me and explain to me what I did wrong. This is not a formal team. So 2 principles exist, though. The first is that SRE teams are held accountable for an engineering deliverable, an actual engineering project. Operational outcomes are not engineering deliverables. They're a success metric. They're very good at what they are, but they're not this. They don't fit here. So ask yourselves, is your team performing interesting engineering work? It's important. Why? It's going to give your team members agency. Give them some control over the selection process. Don't only be reactive. Encourage them to design and promote project proposals. That's how work gets initialized. That's how these things are considered and taken up. Give them the opportunity to practice their skills. If they're not doing engineering work, they're probably doing rote tasks over and over again, and you don't grow as quickly when you're repeating the same operation. And engage both sides of the brain. Creativity is important. Creativity is very important. This is one of the easiest ways to have folks on your team remain happy and satisfied with their work. So engineering principle number 2 says that SRE teams build solutions that provide an engineering organization with the data and incentives they need to hold itself accountable to agreed upon standards and goals. In short, don't rely on an SRE model to control the distribution of responsibilities. I'm going to get into this one a little bit deeper, so we'll advance. Really, what's it saying? The engineering teams need to consider all of these things in scope too. On Monday, Chris Bray's talk, where I didn't expect it, talking about 5 exaflop supercomputing systems, really put a good amount of time and focus on the team titles and the fact that everybody rolled up their sleeves and pitched in regardless of what they had on paper next to their names. If I may quote a bit, I heard, it doesn't matter what their job title is. Throw out the playbook. Own the whole thing. Iterate and avoid layers. This is an attempt to do this. That's what those mini project models do. So in doing so, I say you get to circle and highlight more of these healthy team line items. You create a shared vision across team boundaries. You have more opportunities to work together. That creates a stronger team identity. It also generates a sense of belonging. So the outcomes are higher quality as a result. These are all good things as you're working to build a healthy SRE team. There are 5 steps in this actual process. We're going to get to some diagramming now. So step 1, bifurcate your projects and assess them on some dual criteria. There are 2 up arrows, 2 down arrows. The up direction requires that you have both a minimal amount of friction and low barriers to completion. That's not project duration. That's not saying pick small, easy targets. It's saying go and find the things that have a high probability of success. Why? Maybe they're just more in reach. Maybe they're not politically sensitive in the org. The people dynamics are easier for you to understand. They're navigable. In the down arrow, consider that the work might not bring your team a lot of glory. And this amount of recognition is going to depend on who's in your team, what they've done recently. You can't control these outcomes. I'll talk again a little about this more. This aligns with principle number 2. Warning, don't stop there. If you've stopped here, you are likely in some kind of relationship model with other teams or with your company that has you reacting. You're not going to be delivering an engineering deliverable. You're going to be stuck with toil. It's not good. So evil Kermit's going to come get you. Your team might dissolve. Move the needle. Take action. So this is the up arrow selection. Select projects that satisfy your teams. Direct accountability means you move the needle. It means that you've got the destiny in your own hands. And this isn't going to be the primary focus in this dual accountability talk today. But these are the tasks that have very short-term, near, fast, quick, improve the reliability, the availability, the pick-your-ility outcomes that your team can really champion, wave the banner high, and say, we did this. Okay, the down arrows, low recognition, low control. I think this is really the crux of my objection to the traditional SRE models as they're designed. And we're going to focus on this in another slide, but you've got to play the long game. So you redistribute the responsibilities, and you put those SRE concepts in scope for the non-SRE teams. It aligns with principle number 2. You show teams the way, and you help them with prioritization. And step 5, plan. If SRE is what you get when you start treating operations as a software problem, act like a software team. Put a roadmap together. Actually manage your interrupts. Put those protections in place. Take care of your people. Execute, iterate, be nimble. So here we go. We've got the full model here, a decision-making model that's based on accountability, engineering-wide. And You're almost there. One last piece here. How do you get recognition? You've got to do it more than once. It takes a little while. 3 years into developing this process and this workflow, we're not done. So you have now a feedback loop. You have inputs that come in. You've got those SREs making more project proposals. They're writing TDDs. They're in architecture guilds, commenting on designs org-wide. They're participating in postmortems. Projects and AIs are falling out of those. You figure out what your engineering organization needs and values, and then sometimes more goes back up to direct accountability. Sometimes you have more time, more goes down to diffuse accountability. But do what you need to do to ensure your team gets recognition. This is important. This is really important to the health of a team. Nobody wants to be overlooked. Nobody wants to not be acknowledged for the work that they've done. People choose this work, they promote this work, they think it's valuable. Well, you can champion and applaud inside your teams, but what are you doing to actually make sure the rest of the organization acknowledges and recognizes your value? Do it over and over and over again. So you've got this decision-making framework that helps you to maintain a healthy team. Let's focus on the culture and diffuse accountability pieces. So again, this is relatable to what the traditional SRE texts tell you to do, but it's intentionally open-ended. At Reddit, our SREs didn't want to be TPMs. And they didn't want to rely on golden ratios, and we didn't have mature systems to help us tilt the scales when things became too operationally heavy, or our team was stuck in a sticky embedding and they couldn't get out even though it wasn't going well. This shifts the prioritization effort onto your partner teams, onto the SWEs, the product engineering org, the ads engineering org, the data engineering org. You're providing them the data and incentives they need to hold themselves accountable. This drives cultural improvement. That's the long-term goal on this bottom down arrow area. This takes a long time. Cultural evolution at a company is not a month-to-month or quarter-to-quarter initiative. This is a 3, 4, 5-year plan. And so I say you have to do it over and over and over again. And at first, these projects are not going to be the projects that get your teams a good deal of recognition. Don't count on that happening. But it's still worth it. And so what has Reddit done to create a culture of accountability engineering? So first, it's pretty typical, we built an incident response framework. It's one of the first things you do. You set up a new SRE team. You say, process, formalities. Well, we also built a tool. And we've got incident commanders that are staffed by SRE, but we made it global. We trained a bunch of other teams. They are now a drop-down selection on the tool, so engineers get paged. They say, give me my own org's pillar of trained incident commanders. We'll work with them. It tracks the 7 zeros, it auto-populates the postmortem docs, and it helps us track the AIs. We also, and I never, ever would have thought that a big focus of my time would be working with IT Corp to get access to the HRBP org tree for hierarchical service ownership metadata. But we stood up backstage and we have a service catalog. And it has been one of the most welcome solutions that SRE has put into place. We're going to start routing alerts based on it. We have project keys in our trackers. It's fantastic. So we use this for a variety of things, and I think it's actually got unbounded potential. Yes, by the book, actually. We built a pipeline for publishing and alerting on SLOs. SLO culture is a completely different topic, but what do? We jammed it in the service catalog because SLOs need owners too. So this has been wildly successful for us. We've got copy-paste from the prompt QL that is put into the page view, and also a description, because descriptions matter. What are you actually looking at in numerical format? Okay, and then as most all companies operate today, we're in a hybrid, primarily remote work environment. So what did we do with our operational review? We jammed it into Google Docs. We used a Google Doc template schema based on Go templating, and we can actually go and dynamically insert the incidents from the Code Red tool. We can go and put in the incident AIs from the Jira tracker. We're giving teams their SLOs. We're tagging owners in the service catalog for the docs so they can go look at these things when they're mentioned. Not shown here, we also have PagerDuty health. We've got JPEG renderings from Grafana. Why the Google Doc, though? Dashboards are great. You can't mark up a dashboard. You can't asynchronously, with somebody 12 hours away who's not going to be on a call with you, have any kind of real discussion. So moving these into something that has the ability to leave comments or live edit is very, very important. All right, and then lastly, example here, we've got scorecards. They're not meant to replace human judgment, but it's for efficiency. It's a really good starting point, having conversations with teams, and we found this is off to a great start. Just keep adding more checks. So what do we use them all for? Again, it's the feedback loop. The keyword here is prioritization. All of these are diffuse accountability systems, and they're designed to boost the signal for what SRE teams should be working on in order to have the best impact on the engineering orgs they work in. So in summary, these tools have helped us. They might help you. Project-based team formation is a well-established, well-known business principle. Most companies, not engineering, can use it, and they can use it well. So can SRE. Group dynamics need to place their focus on the relationships. That matters a lot. You can't build relationships in silos. Plan, keep planning, iterate, and plan some more, and then collaborate, make that cross-functional planning, involve other teams in your process. And then the tools that diffuse accountability help build the culture that you want at your company. Thank you.